Chris Markowski joins me now. He is, I call him the Watchdog on Wall Street because he's the host of the Watchdog on Wall Street radio show podcast. And now I like it way better when you're in the studio, but this is what it's come to, Chris.
Yeah, it's a pretty windy day here on Long Island. I'm hoping that my internet connection, my electricity stays on here. We got like 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts going here to deal with.
I was preparing for the show today, and I was on the phone with Frank Morano, my producer, and going over with who's coming on and what we're talking about. And I hear these banging noises like I can't believe. I live alone, and it sounds like someone's jumping up and down on my roof. And I'm like, there can't be anyone on my roof. And I'm looking around, I don't see anything. I look in front of my house, and there's like a 7-foot-long piece of aluminum siding that must have ripped off, and it was slamming against the house and then finally broke free. So we're experiencing the same here in the other island, Staten Island. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe it's a bit of a distraction for the day. Markets, I'm sure you're aware, bouncing around to the downside. Obviously, after a big week last week, Donald Trump coming out this past weekend and touting the performance of the markets last week. But everybody is waiting with bated breath when we're going to get that sign where we can start opening things up. Portfolios will take care of yourself. If you own quality companies in your portfolio, you're going to be fine. And I tell people, say, listen, if you can go to your portfolio and every single company in there you know is a solid company, don't look at the price of the stock right now. That's if you're an investor. Different story if you're a trader. My concern right now, as it's been for the entire period of time, are my clients that own small businesses, are the hairdressers out there that can't get to work, are the people that own dry cleaners, the restaurateurs. All of these people out there are really, really hurting. And I don't know about you, I'm really noticing this. I don't think the mainstream media is giving their just due. They're not paying attention to the pain and the public health crisis that we're going to face with an economy that's going to be shut down for an extended period of time.
Yeah, no, Chris, I'm with you. And, me and you were having these hypothetical conversations maybe like, I don't know, a month ago or so when you were in. And I was saying that, bad news here. I thought the market could go as low as 18. It touched there for a minute, but it's had, I was just talking before you came on about the market being a forward-looking vehicle. And I feel like the market was forecasting these flattening models going back a couple of weeks ago. It seems like we got a bid, and people feel confident that it's going to get better from here. Not from an earnings standpoint, but from the medical emergency that's going on. What are you telling people about where they could start finding value in this market?
I'm looking at companies that are not laden with a ton of debt out there. As you well know, and I'm sure your listeners, you got an astute crowd out there, understand that when you go into a recessionary period, you find out who's swimming naked. And it's a cleansing period. Weaker companies are going to go by the wayside, unless, of course, you get a bailout or something like that. Who knows what they're going to end up handing out here, there, and everywhere. No one knows at this point in time, especially with the Fed last week giving another lending facility to more mid-sized and smaller cap business, and to some degree almost putting a bottom in when it comes to the junk bond markets as a whole. So again, I'm looking for value. I'm looking for high quality companies with low debt, companies that we know are going to come out on the other side and be okay. But if you're going to have a difficult time refinancing and your balance sheet's not looking too good, then what's going to happen to you is what happens to companies during recessions. You go out of business.
Yeah, and I gave a little primer course on this earlier. Many people that aren't Wall Street wonks like us may not remember, but the guy who was handing out all the free money to the banks in the last crisis, in the TARP crisis, was Neel Kashkari, who's now the Fed, I guess he's the Fed president of Minnesota. And all of a sudden, Neel Kashkari and the Fed, the way I see it, they're cranking up the old government Ponzi game again, because you got banks, big banks that know how to work the process, go to the discount window and get money at zero, and then figure out a way to coagulate and launder that money over to their capital markets side, and they buy treasuries where they're getting paid 1. So me and you would love to get in on this game, right? Go to the government and say, lend me money at 0. then take that money and buy treasuries where you're getting paid 1%. Why would they ever lend to people? You know what I'm saying? I don't understand it.
It hurts with the velocity of money. And one of the issues we're having right now is that these government programs that have been geared towards small businesses, in particular this PPP program, money's not getting out. It isn't. While we've been trying to help people from around the country, we've put together various different spreadsheets and things that small business owners can use to help them apply for this. And they're getting the runaround. I mean, banks are, okay, call me back. You got to wait by the phone. You got to set up a phone appointment, reapply via online. They have no idea how this works. And it's unfortunate because this is supposed to help stimulate the economy and get us through this point in time. But that money is just, it's stuck. It's not getting out to the people.
I'm shocked by it, Chris, because I'm sitting there like, all right, Mnuchin's doing a good job at this. And Mnuchin spent years at Goldman Sachs, right, where they go around the world and they syndicate billions and billions of dollars to give to an issuer or a bond offering or a REIT or something like that. So he's built a career around syndicating money from many and giving it to a few, right? Now he's in the opposite situation. He's got all the money. Now you got to give it out to a lot, and they can't figure out the reverse of that process. The money's there. The bank, everyone I'm talking to is saying that their bank is being as good as possible, but the bank doesn't have answers. The bank's doing the process. They're doing the application. They're underwriting it. They're coming back to you, and the bank's, okay, you're in line. Now we upload it to the E-Trans system, and the system's crapping out. So it looks like the government can't do it.
Yeah, well, if you also got, how many thousands of pages of banking rules and regulations going all the way back to Sarbanes-Oxley to Dodd-Frank. So these banks have know your client rules. They have a myriad of different things that they're looking at, and they're afraid that, if we give out a loan to somebody that shouldn't have gotten a loan, are we going to come back and are we going to be stuck with this? I don't think the government has given a clear picture. Maybe, Mnuchin's got to start kicking these banks in the good old tuchus and say, hey, listen here. We're doing this as a stimulus package for small business, trying to keep many of these businesses afloat. You need to get that money out the door. And maybe some of the banks are thinking that they're going to come back and they're going to end up holding on to all of that bad paper when the Fed has already said that they're going to take it and put it on their balance sheets.
Yeah, well, there's the trick, if you ask me, Chris, because I got lucky enough to just be helping and advising with a couple of local banks who were just looking for resources and, reading information and getting on some calls. And I was on a call with all the regional community banks here in the New York, New Jersey area, right? And the trick is the government is telling the public that they're giving the banks guarantees, right? But what I think of a guarantee and you think of a guarantee and someone else, a regular small business guy, says, oh, well, the government's guaranteeing it. I should just get my money. The government is tricky. They're giving them a guarantee with a wink that, hey, we're guaranteeing it except for these things, right? And then if you ask me, all the government had to do was say to the banks, and I heard a number of community bank presidents yelling about this on the SBA call, was, do we get a safe harbor? Do we get a hold harmless that you want us to give out this money fast, but if we miss a document or we don't cross an I or we don't cross a T or dot an I, then the borrower doesn't have to worry about paying back the money. But the government could say, you know what, we're unguaranteeing that because you didn't do good due diligence. So they didn't give the banks, they're not untying their hands, really, from the risk in this.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what banking has become. There's so many rules out there that nobody can actually think for themselves. They go right to the rule book that's very, very large and very, very difficult to understand, and it's making it tough on people out there. Not to mention the fact as well that for the small business owners out there that are concerned that if they don't use the money the way the government wants it to, the loan's not going to be forgiven. Now, for the life of me, I don't understand. If you own a restaurant and you've got all of these waiters, and again, they want you to keep all these people on the payroll, but you also have to pay rent. And you just also had all of your food that's spoiled and everything that went along with that. In order to keep your business going, you need to actually do what? You need to, pay for rent. You need to pay for all of these other things. And it might be better to allow your employees to go off payroll and to go on unemployment or to be furloughed for a period of time. So they're saying to themselves, even if I keep them on payroll, I'm still going to go out of business anyway.
Yeah, I'm hearing that too. I've been hearing from a lot of people that they told their employees, hey, you know what, the process may take you a week or two, so start it now. And if things work out, I want you to come back. But I also, in our last couple of minutes here, I also think we're looking at a real paradigm change in commercial real estate, Chris. Yeah. And I think a lot of companies now are going to really be able to assess who was effective remotely, right? And then they're really going to start looking at the footprint they need for, having all their people on premise at the same time. And I think the effect over the next 3 to 5 years on commercial real estate is going to take a beating, because I think companies are going to figure out ways to let a rotational amount of people work from home Monday and Friday, and other people come in on Tuesday and Thursday, and maybe one day a week they have 100% in the office, but lowers a lot of weight on the company. I think commercial REITs and stuff are going to take a real beating.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I was telling people, you got to make like Forrest Gump and just run through that tunnel and keep going when it comes to commercial real estate. What was it? Just this past couple of weeks ago, it was a big building in New York. The guy lost his $35 million deposit on the Daily News building because Deutsche Bank said, no thanks. We don't want to finance this, because they see the forest for the trees and understand that commercial real estate and business owners are going to say to themselves, hey, you know what? We're going to renegotiate this at a much lower price, or we're just going to send people home.
Yep. It's we're going to have to sift through this over a couple of martinis when we get back to the studio, my friend. But I always appreciate you joining us. Thanks for giving us a few minutes today. You're the man.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it.
CEO of Markowski Investments and host of the Watchdog on Wall Street podcast and radio show, Chris Markowski.